Video's a little dark. Okay. It's kind of funny. This YouTube channel for me was going to be restricted to just funny videos, short clips. And then I had something change my mind. If you read the title, you know what this is about. If you read the description, you know a little bit more. But let me start out with something very simple. I love film, okay? I love film about as much as I love books. Now, I'm a writer, and I am also a visual artist. Illustrator specifically, I teach painting, I do some other stuff. That's not important right now. But those two things, writer, artist, those are important, all right? I love film because I love language, and I love visual imagery. And I work in both of those. What I'm not good at is music. And film manages to take one of my other favorite passions, acting, playing a character, telling a story, and use language, imagery, acting, and music in conjunction to create something more than the sum of its parts. It's evocative, it's engrossing, it encapsulates, basically, short of taste, smell, and touch, it encapsulates most of our senses to bring us into a different world for a brief period. Now, a lot of people have talked about this scene online lately since it premiered. Stranger Things Season 4, the running up that hill scene. I've seen a lot of people talk about the nostalgia and the Freddy Krueger references and use of the song and how well it lines up because of the score landing or the notes hitting. And even some mention of how the lyrics land in relation to what's going on. What I haven't seen anybody discussing is something that I find the most impressive bit. Because film is an art. Film is about telling a story most of the time, but sometimes, if used correctly, it can be about conveying an abstract idea, bringing up emotions, getting us tied in with the story to understand something bigger. So, what Max has been going through this season, it's very clearly depression. It's also a lot of survivor's guilt for anyone who's been through either of these or known anyone who's been through either of these, which should be most people. It's very clear to see those things. Also, the villain this season uses people's fears, insecurity, guilt, and shame specifically to target them and prey on them by taking away the last vestiges of hopefulness inside of them until they essentially surrender to, what did he say he wanted to do in that one thing? He said that most people were simply waiting for death and he wanted to release them from their lives. What they did with running up that hill scene, I want to talk about how they achieved something truly awesome. So, let's go with the first note. Leading up to this, Max writes letters. She doesn't just go and talk to the people that she cares about, that she'll be leaving behind. They specifically chose notes. And she delivers them for them to read later. As someone who's read suicide notes before, as someone who suffered from depression and has written suicide notes before, this was immediately visible at what they were hinting at with her depression and leaving the notes. She was giving up. But she was still going to keep trying to fight. She just wasn't sure she could win. Okay, that's one step. When you get to the part where she enters the Upside Down, immediately Billy approaches her. And what he begins speaking are the things that she's afraid of inside herself. He's feeding the insecurity. Vecna, in the guise of Billy, is purposely feeding the depression. Because Vecna is a monster of depression. Vecna is a visual representation of depression. This becomes even more clear as the scene goes on. The world around her is slightly familiar, but everything is warped. She's in the upside down. As Vecna begins to close in and push further, everything he says sounds exactly like the self-talk of someone who is suffering from depression, survivor's guilt, shame, insecurity, hopelessness. He's giving voice to it. He is feeding those things so that he can prey on her. But when he grabs hold of her, he doesn't just grab hold of her by the shoulder. He doesn't just grab hold of her and place her in one place. He renders her entirely helpless. He binds her arms. He lifts her from the ground. She is suspended in this hellscape with this self-talk feeding those emotions. When he moves in further, it's not by accident that these tentacles reach up and they wrap around her throat, choking her, squeezing her voice away and her ability to breathe. Because that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to be in this state. You are helpless. You are paralyzed. You feel like you can barely breathe. You're scared to speak, so you feel like you can't. And they've put it in a visual. And from this moment on, I'm lost in the scene. Because I know the familiarity of this. Millions of people understand this feeling. And they've evoked it through the art of film. But it doesn't stop there. Throughout the season, we've seen Max push away her loved ones because they couldn't understand. She didn't feel like they could. Even as they surround her with love and support, she feels alone. But as Vecna closes in and he pushes these things, it is those loved ones from the outside trying to reach her who find a common language, who find what her coping mechanism has been, music, and use it to reach out to her. And it gets through. And the moment it gets through, we don't just see in her head how there's hope again. We see a literal light at the end of a road that seems unreachable. It's so small in the distance, and it opens up. And she's looking at this light at the end of the hellscape, this last vestige of hope. And as she hears their words, they finally get through. They finally connect. She remembers. She realizes how much they actually care. She goes through the good in life, and she finds hope again. And she finds the will to fight. And she reaches out and she grabs Vecna by the throat. And she basically, not today. But the struggle's not over. Because the way out of depression isn't just to beat those negative thoughts in your head. It's not just the defeating of a monster. It is a road. And as the score pumps up and the lyrics start landing, if I could just let me steal this moment for now. Come on, baby. Come on, darling. Let me just steal this moment from you now. And she runs in the lyrics. The lyrics that we've heard all season as she's listened to this song about her feelings, about wishing that she could swap places with Billy, with the person that she lost. The guilt, the survivor's guilt, the shame that she can't express to anyone. Rising in score as she runs through this monstrous landscape towards that light, towards the people that love her, waiting, just waiting to embrace her, but it's not over. Everything begins crashing down around her. She stumbles, she slides in what looks like actual blood. This is life or death. And even though most people may never realize it, when you are in that hellscape of your mind, assaulted by that monster of depression, this is a struggle for life and death. You fight for every step, every day. And you can see the people that love you, but you may not be able to feel it. And as Max runs, every step is closer and closer to hope. It's that light at the end of the tunnel. And in the last final moment, while everything's crashing down around her, and she makes one last lunge, the screen goes black. And we're left to wonder, did she make it? And they leave just enough of a pause. Then when she finally comes to and she drops from that height, from that suspension, from that isolation, she is immediately embraced by those that love her. And what does she say? I'm still here. I'm still here. Because even though she beat him once, she knows it can come back. She knows that the fight continues. Now, for all you people out there talking about the brilliance of the music and talking about how well the beats land with when the stuff crashes, yes, absolutely, that is a thing. It's gorgeous. For all the people talking about the nostalgia and the references, yep, they landed those too. These directors are really good. But what matters to me, what makes this art, what elevated this scene into being what some are calling the perfect scene, is because they have represented something symbolically, visually, an abstract concept to so many in a way that grabs us by the throat. In a way that for anyone who's ever been through it, I honestly believe that viewing this scene can help them fight further. So, Stranger Things Season 4, the running up that hill scene. Bravo, guys. Bravo to everyone involved. It's amazing. And I'm so thankful that this isn't just another popcorn show on TV without a message. And also that the message isn't ham-fisted, heavy-handed, and juvenilely done. You use the art of your medium and you pulled off something awe-inspiring and inspirational and gut-wrenching and at times painful and entirely beautiful.